Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. At Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Scott today. Scott is an individual that he's a listener of the show. He also reached out to me about some things from the Federalsburg, Maryland area, which is over by the Delaware border. That's an area we don't hear a lot about. So Scott, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Jeremiah. I'm a big fan. I listen to your podcast quite often. So I'll go ahead and get right into it. I grew up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I've been in the woods a lot as a kid, as a young adult. Deer hunted all my life. I was always in the woods riding four-wheelers, dirt bikes, things of that nature. I never really believed in Bigfoot or cryptids. So I'd say around 2005, 2006, around November, it was a little chilly out around that time. Well, I had a friend over my house, and I wanted to show him and my kid's mother where my deer stand was, just in case if anything ever happens, and they know where to find me. As we was exiting the trail to the field, I noticed as I was walking that my kid's mother wasn't with us. So I turned around and I seen her staring into the woods like she had seen a ghost. Then proceeded to start walking fast, heading towards me, me and my friend. So I let her towards me and my friend and said, "Let's get out of here." At the time, I've heard a bunch of like branches and things of that nature cracking in the woods, like something big was moving. So we get closer back to my parents' house, and I had to ask my kid's mother, what exactly did she see? She said whatever it was on all fours. It was black, furry body, and it had a human face and was staring at her. She didn't have much more to say about it, but what she seen, I know, had definitely spooked her. I never thought of any creature like that in the woods, especially how she described it. So I say about 3 to 4 months passed. I was probably about 18, 19 years old at the time. I was working at a grocery store, late night stocking shelves. I was coming home from work. My dad has always made me park my pickup in the backyard of my parents' house. We have 2 driveways to the house. The second driveway goes to the backyard. So as I'm heading down the driveway to make a U-turn, I say this was probably about 11:30 at night. As I was making the U-turn to park my truck, I got a quick glimpse of something tall and black fur out of the corner of my eye, out the driver's side window of my truck. I didn't get to see a face or an arm or anything like that. I just saw fur for a quick second. I was frozen, but what I seen is I had stopped my truck right away. I was so scared by what I just saw because I have never witnessed anything on the Eastern Shore with black fur. We don't have bears in that area. So I ended up driving my truck up to the back door of the house. I hopped out and ran inside the house and told my father about it. I was too scared to park the truck and walk to the house after seeing what I seen. My dad said, "Son, you probably seen a deer." I said, no way, Dad. Whatever it wasn't a deer, not with black fur. I'd say about a year or 2 years later, I was in the woods, same woods, walking. There's a path back there. There's a nature trail. It's behind a school. Back in the 70s, they used to go back there for, I guess, I'm not exactly sure what class it was, but it was through the school. They learn about like trees or whatever. And there's a high school and a middle school right side by side. And they, after like in the 70s, they stopped going back there for some reason. I really don't know what the reason was. But we always like to go back there and keep the trails clean because we always rode our dirt bikes and four-wheelers back there and things like that when we were younger. So one day I was back there and I was on foot this day. I came across this deep impression in the mud of a huge footprint. had to be at least 17 inches long and at least 6 feet wide. At the time, I had an old flip phone, didn't have a camera on it, so I couldn't take a picture and never thought of getting a casting of it. But after seeing the footprint, I had a good idea it was a Bigfoot and made me a believer 100%. Then I say about 3 months passed. My dad came to me and said, "Son, you remember telling me about the footprint and the black fur you saw?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Son, well, I believe you. What you saw." I said, "What did you see?" He said, "Yeah." Then he said, "Well, I believe you. What you saw," he said, he actually seen it himself. I asked him, "What did you see?" He said, "I seen Bigfoot." So across the street from my parents' house, there's a field that divides a ditch with another field on the other side. He said he's seen a real big human-like black furry thing that looked like a Bigfoot walking upright across the field on the other side of the ditch. I want to say it was at least 200 yards away from the front porch where he had seen it from. He has also told me that around dusk he keeps seeing something in the front field across from the house that to him looks like orbs. He said he sees them and they move real fast and shoot up a tree and go from one tree to another like it jumps. He says he sees this almost every night. I have been on the hook about Bigfoot ever since, and I actually went back in those woods. I seen the footprint around Thanksgiving time of 2024, and when I was walking the trails back there, I came across these like TP structures. There was like 6 of them back there, but it was a little strange because they seemed a little too small to be something that a Bigfoot would make. And there's no kids or anything like that I know of that go in those woods and play. Um, and like where I've seen them at the trail, it goes through and it opens up to this real big area. And in that area is where I've seen majority of these TP type structures. Um, that's about it, Jeremiah. That's my story, and I appreciate you having me on here. I'm a little nervous. I definitely would like to see Bigfoot myself one day, actually see it. Um, I've been amazed with it ever since, and I'm definitely a believer.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm looking at the map of Federalsburg right now. It looks like there's a pretty sizable wildlife management area north of the town.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
a
sir. This
that's a
is
pretty good spot for something to be in for sure.
definitely. The area where I'm at is more towards out in the country. That's more or less like closer to the town side. You have the wildlife area. I'm more towards out towards the country, going like heading towards like Denton, Maryland, out towards that way. That's where I had my seen all had all this happen.
Okay, so that was up in Denton, you said that area?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
outside of Federalsburg, heading towards Denton, Maryland. It's kind of
Mhm.
like in between and within that area. Like I said, there's a I'm not sure if you're able to pull up Richardson Road, but in that area there, Richardson Road, and then like American Corner right there, in that area there is where I've had all these sightings and everything.
Now, have you done any sometimes, you have a sighting and you start really digging into it. Have you, looked to see if there's been on any other sightings in this area over the years, or is maybe local stories of seeing something like this?
So when I was a kid, my brother's friend used to say all the time. Of course, I'm the youngest. I have 2 older brothers, and they used to say that there used to be that they had witnessed something running across the field. They were spotlighting deer one night, and they spooked something up, and they were in a little S10 pickup truck, and this whatever this thing was started chasing after them, and they were doing every bit of like 40, 50 miles an hour, and this thing was like right on them, and they couldn't tell what it was. And a couple other people have said that it's like a jabby walker, which I've never heard of before. um Other than that, I've looked on the BFR, the Bigfoot research page, and I haven't seen anything in my area. So a lot of people, when I come out and tell these stories, they they definitely don't believe me because nobody's ever witnessed anything within that area. I personally think that Bigfoot is everywhere. I don't think that he's just like in the mountains or where there's a lot of elevation. I feel like they're everywhere.
No, I agree. I mean, as long as there's, food source and is there a lot of deer and things in that area, or what do you have down there?
Yes, sir. We definitely got a lot of deer. And in that area that I all this stuff went down, there's actually a pond back there as well. So there's definitely places for, food and other resources.
Mm. Any, sometimes when you have things like this going on, there'll be like a lot of missing pets or things like that. Has there ever been an issue with that down there at all?
Well, when I was younger growing up, we had a few cats going missing, but we just figured they just went off and died somewhere.
Mm.
I don't really know, to be honest.
What's it like talking to your dad regarding? Have you ever talked to him about what he saw?
Yes, I have spoke to him about it. Um, like I said, he was never a believer until he actually seen what he's seen that day, and ever since then, it's definitely made him a believer. It got him into actually watching like the Bigfoot shows on TV, and I mean, I believe he's just as hooked as I am.
Mm. You said there's definitely no bear down in your area, right?
No, Western Maryland has bears, but not the Eastern Shore.
Gotcha. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense that they would be over there, but that's interesting. Especially, I mean, well, the even more interesting, I think, is seeing the orbs. What color were those again?
He never wanted the detail to actually tell me what color they were. He
Sure.
just said that he saw them and they move super fast and jump from tree to tree. He said it moves like wave, like it shoots right up the tree and it just like jumps from one tree to the other.
Gotcha. When in this area where all the things are going on, are there ever any other weird things that happen? Maybe out of place sounds or anything like that.
So I pretty much grew up there all my life when I was a kid, and I used to hear a lot of crazy sounds in the woods. And anytime I went and asked my father, hey, what was that sound I heard? He'll be like, that's a fox or it's something like that mating. I've heard stories of like with the Bigfoots, like from listening to your show, where it sounds like a woman screaming. I've actually heard that when I was younger in that area.
Oh, so you've heard like that screaming noise.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, foxes can, I'm sure you're aware of how foxes sound. Um,
Right.
and they can sound weird, but it's a little bit different. I'm sure you're probably aware of the difference, and you know that the sound of the animals that are in that area. Um, hmm, that's very interesting. Um, After you had these things happen and people were having sightings, did anything weird ever start to happen around the house?
No, not that I can recall. Um, Not nothing recently either, besides, what my dad's seen, but that was probably last time I heard him talk about those orbs was probably a year ago, 6 months to a year ago. Um, I'm actually getting ready to move back to that area.
Hmm.
So when I get over there, I'm definitely going to be doing some more research myself.
Do you know of anyone that is already doing research in that area?
No, not anybody.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an area that I have never heard anyone bring up. So that's very interesting. It'll be interesting, definitely keeping keep in touch. If you do end up, going out, and if you start to find things out there, could get pretty interesting.
Yes, sir.
Are there?
I've been hooked. I've been hooked on it ever since, man. I'm
Oh
a big
yeah,
Bigfoot fanatic now.
I, I I'm right there with you. Are there any some especially on the East Coast? You have these towns, and they have like really old like town stories or legends. Are there any of those down in this area from 100 years back or
Uh,
anything like that?
no, not really. I mean, there's like some paranormal stuff, but it's more or less like, I don't know, at least half an hour to an hour from that area, but not exactly in that area. I haven't heard of anything.
Oh, okay. So it'd be like there's haunted stuff like an hour away, stuff like that.
Right, right.
Hmm. Gotcha. That is interesting. You look at it on a map, and people wouldn't think that there could be Bigfoot stuff, but I mean, it's just you've got Delaware to the east of it, and then
Hmm.
you've got Delaware Bay, and then that area South Jersey is just crazy with Bigfoot stuff. The Vineland area, I mean, it's right there.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I don't think it's out of the question that I mean you have that confirmed visual from your father, which is pretty rocking. Um,
Right. And after I've seen that footprint in the woods, there's nothing that tells me that it's anything else but a Bigfoot. I mean, it had the heels, the toes, everything.
n- Now, when you saw that footprint, did you see more than one, or was it a single footprint in that area?
Jeremiah, to be honest with you, was I only seen one.
Hmm.
I walked around and figured, it might have been a long step. I could never find a second footprint. I only found the one.
That's weird. My friend, I don't know. I had actually it was in a video on the Area 58 Museum channel. Steve brought up an idea where when you see one of those, footprints by themselves, and it's underneath them just some trees, it might be worth looking up in the trees because they may have
Yeah,
done a thing where they kind of launched themselves up in the tree, and they're hanging on to a pine tree up there. So it's something I'm gonna keep in mind when I go out to the Pacific Northwest again. But it might be something to keep in mind when you go back to that area as well.
definitely, definitely, definitely. I'm definitely going to look for that because, at the time, like I said, I wasn't that big of a believer, and I didn't really think of much after I seen the one footprint. I didn't think, to look up, but I definitely going to look up. And when I go back to that area, I'm going to do some research and see what I can find.
You'd mentioned that your kid's mother was very affected. Is she
Mhm.
still pretty affected and with the whole subject, or how is she with that now?
She's definitely still affected by it. Um, I told my son about it, and he's actually confronted her about it. And she explained it to him because he wasn't born at the time, and the way she explained it to him is pretty much the same. Same thing. And I feel like she's still affected by it till this day.
Absolutely. You know, you being able to talk to the different people that have these experiences, and then yourself as well, from everything that you've been able to hear from the witnesses and experience yourself, would you categorize it more as something that is maybe a human relative, or something that's more ape-like, or what would you say?
I would say it's more humanoid, more of
Hmm.
a human like. The way my kid's mother explained it, when she had saw it, she said, it was on all fours, and it had black fur, and it had a human face.
Did she ever explain what things about the face made it seem like a human face to her?
No, she never actually ever went into detail about it.
Sure.
That's pretty much all she had said. I think 'cause she was so spooked. Um, I haven't really talked to her recently about the situation that happened many years ago. Um, but next time I do have a conversation with her, I will bring that up and try to get some more information about that day as well.
Now, off of what your dad has said and off of what you experienced as well, how tall would you estimate that
Well,
what you saw was?
what my dad had saw, it was like I said, it was about 200 yards away from the front porch, and he said this thing was huge, every bit of like 8 to 10 feet tall. And what I had seen out the corner of my eye that day, when I turned around in my parents' driveway, it was such a quick glance. And I mean, my truck sits up quite a bit, and it was big, whatever it was, but it moved so fast. It was really hard to tell exactly how tall it was. I couldn't make out like an arm or anything, but I definitely saw black fur.
Some wild, wild stuff. I think once this episode gets out, it'll be interesting to hear, to see if other people in the area have experienced things. I'm gonna guess that. I mean, you look at a map and you've got that. What is it? The Chop Tank River.
Mm-hmm.
Just they could just follow that up through Bethlehem up to Denton.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got, what is it? That, I'm gonna say that weird Nanticoke. Is that right?
Nanacoat, yeah.
Got a
Mm-hmm.
big wildlife area down there. Yeah, man, this is a very, very interesting area, especially if you have a ton of deer in that area. Thank you for reaching out and for sharing what you have experienced. Uh, Definitely keep us informed as to if you experience anything else in that area.
I definitely will, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely. Well, pleasure chatting with you, Scott. We'll be in touch. All right.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
See you.
All right, Bigfoot Society. You've got the privilege of talking to Ernie today. Ernie is a listener that reached out to me from Northeast Oklahoma about an interesting experience he had. So welcome to the show, Ernie.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. I look forward to sharing the story with you guys and the listeners.
Absolutely. Well, Ernie, I'd say we get right into it. It sounds like it's going to be a really interesting one. I've been waiting to talk to you for a while, but Ernie, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic right over to you, and feel free to take us back to where we need to be.
Okay, yeah, this story actually takes place back in March of 2001. So about 24, 25 years ago. I was 16 years old at the time. I'm 40 now, going to school, getting ready for law school, things like that. So a little bit about me, but me and my three sisters were going to visit a family member that had a new baby. So that put him about 25 now. We was going to their home, which was out in Peoria, Oklahoma, which is just a little town on the other side of the Spring River in the Quapaw Nation Reservation. We went out there. We visited. It was break time. We went there, visited with the family, me, my three sisters, Melissa, Amanda, and Connie. Melissa was 15 at the time. Amanda's 8, and Connie was 6. So we went out there, had a nice visit, seen the baby, did all that good stuff. It was about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We decided that we needed to head back home to Commerce, which is another town just on the other side of Quapaw, within the same reservation. Driving back down the road, backcountry road, nothing spectacular, just a clear night. Driving down the road, and me and the sister just having a nice conversation, talking about the baby. We get about 3 miles outside of that little town, and I noticed something walking all along the edge of the road. on the opposite side of the road. We're heading north, and he's walking the same direction. I look at my sister in the front seat, Melissa at the time. Melissa at the time, and I said, "Hey, it's awful late to be walking with no kind of lights or anything like that." And she's like, "Yeah, that's just kind of weird." And the two sisters in the back seat just having a conversation amongst themselves. We keep driving. Get about 150 feet. The silhouette just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm like, "Am I seeing this?" I look at my sister and I said, "Melissa, are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing?" She's like, "Yeah, that's kind of weird." And I was like, "All right." So we proceed to drive up. Like I said, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was breathtaking. The time we get about 50 to 25 yards from this thing, and it stood 9 to 10 feet tall and had dark brown fur, which was just completely baffling. And me and my sister are just both dumbfounded by this, what we're seeing. And I'm like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And she's like, "Yeah." By this time, the two girls in the back seat are seeing this, and they're starting to freak out. They don't know what's going on, and they're losing their minds. We get a little bit closer, and by this time, I'm seeing this, and I'm like, "Melissa, is this what it is? What I think it is?" And she's like, "Yeah." And at this time, the two girls in the back seat are screaming, don't stop, Ernie, just keep going." And at this time, the headlights, the creature, it stops, literally stops, and we're driving probably 5-10 miles an hour. Stops, the headlights get on it, like, if an animal like a deer or something, gets caught in the headlights, it'll freeze. And that's what this thing done. It froze in the headlights, which was just kind of odd. When the headlights froze, the eyes illuminated a yellow. It was just the weirdest yellow that I ever seen. And at this time, my sister's like, "Ernie, this is something I've never seen before." I'm like, "I know, well, it's just a Bigfoot." And she's like, "It is." And she's like, "What do we do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And it stops, makes eye contact with us for about 10-15 seconds, I would say. Made eye contact with us, literally looked at us like it was peering into my soul. And I was like, "This is crazy." And just as nonchalantly as it was walking down the road, it just veered off to the left and walked down into the wilderness, not the wilderness, the woods, and disappeared out of sight, which was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And at that point, we were all freaking out, and the two sisters in the back seat are like, "Did we just see a Bigfoot?" And I was like, "Yeah, we did." And my sister Melissa at the time, she's just like, this is crazy." And I was like, "Yeah." And so we sped off and then got up out of that way, and then we came home and told our parents what was going on, and they're like, "Yeah, come on, guys," and they pulled the two sisters aside, and they shared the exact same story. And it's just been a story that we share on a regular basis. Unfortunately, my sister Melissa, who was 15 at the time, she passed away in 2023 due to cancer. And one of the last things we'd always talked about going down to Hanobia down there in Talahina, where they have the Bigfoot Festival, and life got in the way and we never got a chance. And one of the last things I promised her before she passed, that I would continue to share the story of our encounter and everything. And me and the two sisters that are surviving, we're going to go down this year and try to tell the story and kind of continue to keep this story going so that other people can hear it. And, maybe they'll come forward with their stories and be just more apt to speak about it.
That is such a cool thing that you're doing. Yeah, that is really cool. I'm sorry that you lost your sister.
It's all right, man. She fought a hard battle, but she ended up winning in the end. So that's what gives us a little bit of peace.
Yeah, I think she would. I think she's really happy that you're continuing to share that story. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about what you experienced?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the closest that you got to what you were seeing?
what the closest I have gotten, the closest I have gotten would be the closest what I've seen. It's definitely. I haven't seen anything quite like what I've seen back then. I mean, I've heard like different noises and things like that, which I can't draw a conclusion to whether it being that or not. But the closest I've ever seen to it would be, kind of like what you see on TV shows, the CGI and things. Like I've told people that have seen that I shared the story with is like what you see on TV, the CGI. That is almost like you can't describe it any better than what you see on TV from what I saw all those years ago, and that image is just seared into my mind that it's just perfect. Like, wow, that actually what we're seeing on TV, what the artist renderings and things like that are just so uncanny to what they think it is to what in reality of what I saw, which was mind blowing to me.
Mm.
I've never seen anything. I have never seen anything like that to this day.
Do you remember any specific features of the face, or is it too dark to see anything?
Well, with the headlights, when the headlight shining on it, it actually had like it had a human featuristics of a human face. It was weathered and things like that. Like I said, the face was weathered. You could tell it had been out in the elements and things like that. The skin was rough and dry, almost like a leatherish. Just a lot of weathered lines and things, and just kind of like weather worn, and just like it worn down, and just kind of had like the fur all around it, and just kind of it wasn't the face wasn't furry, but the face just had such a human characteristics, but at the same time, you knew it wasn't human.
Mm. Is what you saw, would you say it was more something that looked ape-like, or maybe something that looked human-like, or something completely different?
Honestly, that's a question that I do get asked a lot of times. The body feature, the actual overall body structure, it had ape featuristics, but it also was had human characteristics. It was almost kind of like a half and half, if I was to explain it. It had half human featuristics, and when it was walking, it actually walked human-like. But obviously 9 to 10 foot tall, it kind of walked a little bit different than a normal human. It had the long strides and things like that, and the arms flailing back and forth. But like I said, the actual body structure was human, but it had the fur of an ape, and had that had the build of like a silverback gorilla almost.
Absolutely. Do you remember anything, if there was any emotion to the face at all that you saw?
Honestly, there was no emotion at all. It was just kind of like, it kind of looked into the car, looked at it. It didn't like give this like any like aggressive, show any aggression towards it on its face or anything. It didn't, it's kind of one of those things that kind of like peered into our soul, looked into us, kind of like, hey, you guys are doing your thing, I'm going to do my thing. And he just kind of went off into the woods to wherever he went off into, and we went on about our day. And it was just kind of like, hey, I exist. I know you exist. So let's just coexist in peace here. And we're like, okay, we're not going to go out and bother with you. You're not going to bother with me. So like I said, we just kind of went on about our evening and went on home for the night. And like I said, he didn't, like I said, show any like aggression or want to like try to attack the car or anything. He just kind of went off and did his own thing.
Do you remember if there was a certain shape to the head at all?
Not really. I didn't quite notice that like a certain shape or anything that kind of stood out. Just kind of, like I said, everything just kind of happened in a blur. I didn't want to like make it think like, am I stroking out here? Or I'm like, I know I didn't do any like psychedelic drugs or anything. I'm 16, so I don't know what that stuff is. Just kind of like freaking out. And like I said, just kind of, it was just the experience overall shocked us. When the shock wore off, we actually kind of sat down and shared notes and everything, and like our stories just kind of all coexisted, and we just kind of all share the same story. But like I said, there was just nothing that I can recall that would give you a clear indication of what kind of characteristics that we've seen at that time.
Absolutely. Have you ever gone back to that area since then?
Actually, yeah, that actually the area where we're at is it's just on the outside of another town, and we go through there quite often. I would say we probably go there probably 2 or 3 times a week. Like I said, it's just actually the actual location is I'd say probably 3-4 miles from the Quapaw Nation powwow grounds, where they actually hold their annual powwow every year. So I mean, like I said, there's a lot of paranormal activity that goes on within this area. So it's just kind of like a lot of Native American legends and things that goes on in this region of that area.
So, and I always want to be careful when you've got things like that. Now, if there are stories in the area, are there stories that are not, well, let me see, how do I want to say this? So I feel comfortable when there's stories and legends that are shared by the individual themselves, if it's Native American culture and history. But are there stories that are part of the culture there as well that are outside of the Native American culture?
Yeah, there's a little bit. There's a little bit of stories. I mean, they have what in the last episode that you spoke to the lady you hear about Grand Lake area.
Yeah.
She mentioned little people. She had a different name for it, but we call them little people up here.
Okay.
And they kind of like she said, they're kind of trickery and do things, hide things, and do whatever. I mean, that's kind of like one of the only stories. But a lot of the stories that were shared around here are kind of like passed down in from the Native Americans into the non-native culture. So I mean, it is kind of like you have the deer lady. But one of the big things that we are known for here in this area, it would be the hornet spook light. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Yes.
That area where we saw the Bigfoot is actually like, I would say probably 5 miles from the spook light.
Oh,
from
no
that
way.
area.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
man.
absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And I've actually seen that spook light a couple of times. So that is one of those things in that area, which is within that Devil's Hollow, Devil's Promenade area. So that hornet spook light, like I said, is about 5 miles from that. That is the main story that resonates through the non-natives within this area.
Now, why is that area called Devil's Hollow?
There was a lot of satanic activity that happened, during the satanic scare of the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
A lot of the people, and a lot of that played into it, but a lot of it is the native words, whenever it were translated into English, translated to like devil or whatever or whatever word that they kind of used for an evil spirit.
That's interesting. That would probably be an interesting study to do on the words of, location words of that area. Sometimes, we'll just leave it there. But some listeners know what I'm talking about. There's some words that you find repeated in locations across the U.S. And Henry Franzoni wrote a really good book on that. Different, maybe Bigfoot related words. But
okay, I haven't heard that, but I have to look into that. Like I said, this area actually, like, just to mention, it's home of 5 Native American tribes.
Oh wow!
5 different tribes. You've got the Quapaws, you've got the Senecas, you've got the Ottawas, you've got the Peorias, you've got what was the other one? And the Cherokees. But the Cherokees' headquarters are located in Tahlequah, which is like an hour and a half from where I'm at. But like I said, our tribes are more the Peoria tribe, the Miamis, the Quapaws, and things like that. So a lot of that culture is ingrained, which is weird. I mean, my family's a little Native American, but we're not of the tribals from around here. We're Shoshone from out west, and
Okay.
we don't actually quite have that kind of stories to this area. But what's crazy is that like me and my three sisters, we had an experience, and then my mom and dad they moved down to the Grand Lake area to the town of Wyandotte, which is another Native American tribe that is here, and they live off into the woods. And when my mom and dad moved out there about 10 years ago, he actually came across a Bigfoot that he saw standing in the road, and it just scared him. And like I said, he's a truck driver, so he's seen all kinds of crazy things, and he said it was just the craziest thing he'd ever experienced. And my 8-year-old nephew, who likes to go outside and shoot BB guns and take pop shots at cans, he went outside and was shooting one day. And I think my mom had told me, she's like, he came back inside after about 5 minutes, and he's like, Meemaw, he's like, we got something bad out there. And she was like, oh, an 8-year-old overzealous imagination. And she's like, oh, okay, what is it? And she's like, he's like, there's a monkey man out there, Meemaw. And then they were flipping through channels on the satellite, and they came across the Bigfoot show, and with the story and everything, they kind of stop and take a listen to it. And my nephew just happened to be walking in the room, and he's like, Meemaw, that's what I saw out there in the woods. And so the connection the connection to Bigfoot actually kind of runs deep into the deep within my family. So we have actually seen multiple family members have actually experienced a Bigfoot. And then in that same area from the Devil's Promenade, my cousin, who her brother that had the baby back in the 20 years ago, he'd actually came across one at the state park at the bridge, and he talks about the story about how it just jumped off the bridge into the water and started swimming down the river.
Oh man, what what state park was that?
Well, some state, I wouldn't necessarily say it was called Bicentennial State Park at the time.
Okay.
And it closed down in around 85, 88. So it's just kind of, we call it Devil's Promenade Park. It's at the Spring River, just right there by the Indian Powwow grounds.
Sure. Is this area, let's say this commerce area, is it known for a lot of Bigfoot related activity or?
Not really. The commerce area where I'm at is actually more of a city. It's more of a I wouldn't say an urban area, but it is more it's not rural, so to speak. We're closer to the town of Miami, which has about 14,000 people. The area where we saw the Bigfoot, has a population of like 800. So it's more rural and backwoods and a lot of wooded area.
Gotcha. How has this affected you since you had that sighting?
Since I've had this sighting, man, it's just kind of like I said. I try to think things logically. Like I said, as a pursuing a career in the law, so I mean, you got to think logically, and everything happens for a reason. And from that day forward, I have just consumed as much Bigfoot content, cryptid, Native American legends, just kind of like as much as I can consume, and just try to get a deeper understanding of what I actually saw. It's kind of like one of those things. It's kind of like I'm firmly a believer. My three sisters, my sisters that are still alive are firmly believers, and my sister who passed was a firm believer as well. And we just kind of consumed as much content as we could. And I worked graveyards at a local manufacturing facility, and my sister was weighing on my mind, and the Bigfoot story, somebody was talking about Bigfoot at work, and I was just like, I need to get back into that and start telling the stories. And I got on and started searching podcasts. I came across your podcast and another one, and I started listening and everything. And I'm like, man, I'm going to reach out to these guys and kind of share my story and see what they think. But another thing that we did a few years ago before she passed away, she encouraged me to share the story, and I had actually reached out to the BFRO out of Kansas City and shared my story with them, and they actually had an investigator, Carter from Kansas City, had actually reached out and did an interview with me, and we talked about it for a little bit, and they published that sighting on their website, and it's logged into the BFRO as a Class A sighting, which they consider one of their more credible sightings, with it having multiple people. So, I mean, the story it's out there, but this was before the podcast wave, so before people started consuming more and more content. So, like I said, it was just one of those things that was weighing on me at the time, and I wanted to get my sister's story out there to keep her memory alive as well. And like I said, I just reached out to you guys, and you guys seemed to be interested in the story, and I just wanted to share it. And it was just kind of, I want to let people know that there are things out there in this world that we don't know. There's a lot of things out there that we do not know exist, but they do exist. It's just, when and where are we going to come across that? When are we going to actually? When is our technology going to catch up to give us a concrete sighting of Bigfoot? When are we going to come across a body, or actually somebody captures Bigfoot or kills it while it's out in the wilderness hunting at the same time? So it's just kind of crazy. And like I told other people, I do believe if something happens, I do believe that Bigfoot is kind of that missing link between the proverbial missing link that everyone talks about. I think that is our missing link to humans and primates. That's that link that they're trying to discover. And with the, and like when it comes to hunting and things like that, I do want to, if you said I want to go hunting a man or an animal, I'm going to tell you I want to hunt a man twice on Sunday and every day on the week, because a man has tendencies and you kind of can track, and we follow a set pattern. But with that, an animal, they're unpredictable. So what I think makes a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch so different is that it can relay on human tendencies, and it can relay on an animal tendency to where it kind of deceives us, and just kind of makes it and stays within that shadow realm to where we're almost there, but we're not there yet.
Exactly. And it just, the intelligence that's reported is so interesting.
It is. It's crazy with the intelligence. I mean, like I said, I haven't actually heard like knockings or anything or rocks being thrown, but like my mom has heard the knockings and things like that. And everyone in my family now are firm believers in the Bigfoot. So, I mean, it's not like, I do have friends that are like, hey, you've got a third eye when I try to tell them the story. But at the same time, I mean, they actually haven't had the experience to where they've seen it. So they don't know. And they're going by their logical thinking to where this doesn't exist because we don't have evidence to show us that they do exist. So they're looking at it from a purely scientific standpoint.
Exactly. And that'll be interesting. I think that, especially with all your AI video and things like that, it will take something extremely substantial to prove to science.
Oh, absolutely.
We're way past the point where anyone can throw out a video and it'd be like, oh yeah, that's enough. No, it's not enough anymore.
It's weird, man. It's just like I said, it was just one of the weirdest times. Like I said, it's just so weird of how something that can happen so many years ago. We're going on actually next month will be the 25 years of that experience. So I mean, the silver anniversary of it. So I mean, it's just crazy to think that 25 years ago something like that actually happened, and it still weighs so fresh on my mind like it happened yesterday. And like I said, it's just a story that we would always tell, come up, and we would share it. And like I said, whenever my sister was on hospice and everything, and before she went nonverbal, it was one of the last stories that we talked about. It was how she wanted, like I said, to get that story back out there and to release it to the people that are interested in it and want to go out and to try to find Bigfoot and try to determine that link between what's going on and what's not. So I mean, it's just kind of a weird situation, and it just fascinating to me. Like I said, I just consumed as much cryptid content as I can. And Oklahoma is the whole state of Oklahoma is just a hotbed for cryptid activity within the whole state, from southeast Oklahoma to northeast Oklahoma, out west to the Panhandle, and it's just crazy of all the stories of just kind of like different things, Native American folklore. There's just something weird that goes on here in Oklahoma that just kind of hard to put a finger on.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the stories, the accounts I get from not just Southeast, but I mean, is not just Bigfoot in the state either. There's plenty of Dogman reports. You already mentioned the Little People reports that were in that other episode, and it's like, what is going on down there? I have no idea.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Dogman in that last episode, that is something that I have actually never even heard of, and in the state of Oklahoma, which that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just something that I had actually never, something that I had never heard or had passed down. And when and after listening to you mentioning the Dogman, I kind of did a little bit of research into it, and I noticed that that was more like a Michigan, Wisconsin kind of thing. But that doesn't mean to say that they don't kind of like listen more down this way. More kind of like what we got. We get more like a Cherokee Devil or something kind of like that. Kind of like I know the crazy show Mountain Monsters had to their fictionalized episode of the Cherokee Monster. That has nothing to do with the actual legend of how it is around here. We actually, before coming on, a friend of mine actually shared something to my Facebook page, talking about how the actual Cherokees back in the 1800s and whenever they first moved here actually had killed a Bigfoot. And actually, they had got into a battle with Bigfoots and killed one. But I mean, there's no substantiated report to it. It's just kind of like how a legend that's passed down. But discussing it with another Bigfoot researcher out in Washington, he had mentioned that he thinks it's more of a giant. That there's legend of giants, and we kind of come to the conclusion that was probably more of a killing them like a giant, so to speak.
It's very, very interesting. I think, I don't know. There's definitely a very, very strong, Native American presence to that state that may very well have something to do with it. But I mean, you also get down to Southeast Oklahoma and you have the Ouachita National Forest, which is just so, I want to say maybe is even 1 million acres. It is a large, large piece of land.
It's massive. It's massive. It spreads a long ways.
There are things, I mean, there are places in there that have probably never been stepped foot in. Maybe even whole valleys,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not surprising that there could be things down there that are hard to see or that have never had contact with humans before. Who knows? But
absolutely, that's exactly right, and that's the problem. There's just so much of our. I do believe that there's so much of our physical Earth and things that we actually haven't discovered. Kind of like the depths of the ocean. I mean, I think I read somewhere where it was like less than 5% of the actual ocean has been discovered. I say that our actual land mass is probably going to be within that scope of things too. Kind of like in the Amazon, that there's Amazon rainforest, there's places that have never seen, that human has never been into, and I do think that there's, like you said, down there in Southeast Oklahoma, that there's niggers that have never been set foot in by humans. So it's just a weird kind of thing, and it's just kind of just a random coincidence. And like I said, it's just kind of where we're at with like I said, that spook light and everything. It's just kind of, we get people from all over the country coming out here to take a look at the spook light or to try to see it, to try to understand what it actually is. And it's just kind of crazy to me that people actually, like you and the other gentleman I spoke with, actually heard about the spook light and have actually done research into it. And it just baffles me to where our small little map dot here in Northeast Oklahoma actually gets the attention of the greater United States and the world at the same time.
Absolutely. Ernie, I just want to say thank you for reaching out and for, coming on to share, and also, it's a great tribute to your sister as well. And I hope you're able to share that down in Honabi this coming October.
I sure do appreciate you taking the time to reach out and having me on the show, man. And I look forward to catching up with the episodes, man. Like I said, Spotify has been a lifesaver, and discovered your podcast, and I just fell in love with it. And I enjoyed listening to the stories because, like I said, they just kind of give me that link to try to consume more and more and gain more knowledge of what I'm trying to understand, to try to like educate other people to what is actually out there, to where you got to have a little bit of faith, and you got to have a little bit of faith to put yourself out there to try to understand what, because there is a bridge between the human life and we're in the Native Americans, the afterlife. I do believe that there is a bridge in between there that does need to be explored. And like I said, I just want to thank you for having me on, and look forward to hearing more. And like I said, I've got people here that are anxiously waiting for this episode to drop whenever it drops, so we can get it shared and get more people hearing the tales of what's going on with the work that you're doing. And like I said, I want to thank you for the work that you do and the content that you put out to get out there to get these words out, and listening to people like me who people think that we're crazy.
No, I don't think so. That's where the truth is. So it's great talking to you, Ernie, and keep in touch if anything else comes up, man.
Absolutely, man. If you ever need anything or come across anything or want to hear more stories about the spook light or something, I'll be more happy to send them to you in email and take a look at them. If you want to do an episode or something about the spook light, feel free to reach out, and I'll talk to you anytime.
Yes, sir. You have a great one.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. I'll see you back next time, listeners. The Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.